up on this week's show, Christmas comes early for Dreamcast fans.
An amazing new controller for your Xbox 360.
And play Codemasters classics in your browser.
And the Retro Hour podcast is brought to you every Friday with our sponsor, our good friends at Bitmap Books. Now, just released from them this week, their brand new volume, Trigger Happy, a visual celebration of video game controllers. Now, this offers a vibrant visual history of the world of video game controllers, going into their design, the amazing ability to transform who we are and what we're capable of, presented through 560 stunning photos and co-authored by legendary games journalist Steve Jarrett. This massive book weighs in at more than 390 pages. You can get your copy right now and check out the rest of their retro gaming collection at bitmapbooks.com. And with our good friends at Replay Events, who this weekend are bringing the UK's biggest retro games market back to Doncaster. It's happening this Sunday, 23rd of November at the Doncaster Dome, just minutes from the M1. There's actually over 600 free car parking spaces. Come along, get yourself some bargains. Doors open at 10:30am and you can get your tickets from doncastergamingmarket.com. Hello and welcome to the Retro Hour podcast, episode number 507, your weekly dose of retro gaming and technology news with me, Dan Wood.
Me, Ravi Abbott.
And me, Joe Fox.
And great to have you joining us for the podcast that comes out every single Friday, lands on your podcast feed, on our YouTube channel, blasting out across the information superhighway. And bringing you up to speed on what's been happening in the world of retro gaming and technology, and bringing you veterans of the industry onto the podcast every week for a bit of a chat about their history and often what they're working on today as well, because they're coming up on the second half of this week's show and on Monday for YouTube viewers. We're going to be going inside the world of emulation this week.
Yeah, so we're talking to Exo, and Exo's the dev of a project that we talked about previously, which was ExoDOS, which was an absolutely amazing kind of program that really helps you out with emulation, because it can be a nightmare to set up. I don't know if you guys have ever set up emulators before and you've had to go into the configurations and, change every different aspect of it just to get it running. It's an absolute nightmare. And, Exo, he's pretty amazing. He's done a huge project. They're covering lots of different areas of emulation as well, and preservation. So within this system that he's built, but also, he's got about 40 people working on it as well, all in different areas. They do a lot of add-ons to work with your emulator. So it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a launcher. It's a lot more advanced than that. But what you can do is say you've got a DOS title. You can select what sound card you want, a sound card that you don't have, maybe a Roland MT32, an external sound card. Yeah, get some high quality stuff. But then you can also get like trailers, you can get developers' notes on some of the games, you can get like the history of it, soundtracks, play all the different versions. It's really well set up, and he has a really big focus on kind of retaining that original quality and no like stretching or widescreen. And I've used lots of emulators before, like commercially packaged ones, and this one's just really fantastic. It seems like one of the best, and it's so comprehensive as well, the amount of stuff on there.
Well, I think the amount of hours in my life, probably even days or maybe even weeks, I've lost to trying to configure DOSBox or PCEM. And you're right, I mean, it is really fiddly, particularly if you're emulating old PCs. I mean, it's a bit easier to emulate like a Super Nintendo or a Mega Drive, but particularly in the world of, even back in the day, I remember seeing big box PC games in like Future Zone, Electronics Boutique, all those requirements on the back of the box about certain amounts of memory you needed, graphics card compatibility.
It's because everyone had a different setup, and being able to emulate that, as well as graphics cards, like being able to emulate the Voodoo and stuff, they're quite expensive now to actually get running. So, you can explore stuff, but also there's a lot of like bonuses, like, they've jazzed up some games, they've mixed some soundtracks in there, and they've fixed some games as well, which had problems on some of the releases, which is really cool. It's a real kind of completionist thing, this Exo project, and we talk about all of them. He's also done stuff about mainframes, some of the oldest games, LAN over the internet as well, kind of being able to have LAN matches and LAN parties online. It's pretty cool.
It is really interesting because I think emulation is such a big part of retro gaming for, those of us who don't have all the original systems. I mean, I do use emulation for a few things. And it's something that we probably should cover more on the show. We were talking about that last night, you and I, Ravi, before we did this interview, because, yeah, it's such a big deal, isn't it? It's like really
we haven't done a show on emulators for a long time. So this is really fantastic. And a big shout to Dave Velociraptor as well from This Week in Retro, who has said, "We've got a great guest. Get him on." So
I think Exo's on This Week in Retro as well, isn't he, this week?
Yeah. Little collab going on there.
Yeah, get a double dose of him this week. So, but on our show, we're going to be going inside the world of all his projects: Exodus, Exo Win 3X, Exo Scum VM, loads of stuff. Basically, it was interesting when we were talking to him as well that only 3% of the titles that are available in Exodus are actually commercially available today. So it's really doing a massive thing for game preservation and making sure that these titles are still accessible. And
also
with
stuff
devs as well.
Yeah, stuff from around the world as well. You know, he was talking about different language games and then translations happening, and you know, the community like benefiting wider from this project.
Yeah, so looking forward to this one. Exo from the fantastic Exo project is going to be our special guest on the podcast this week. Big thank you as well to everyone who's ordered our book over the last week. Quite a few sales coming in. We did say on the podcast last week, get them while you can, because if you missed out on last week's show, basically we did a Kickstarter 2 or 3 years ago where we did a book that weighed in about 400 pages. Pretty comprehensive history of video games from those who made it happen, is how we phrased it in the book. And then the guy who printed it for us, Nico, messaged us a few months ago, so I've just found a box of your books that I didn't send you. So we do have some left, which obviously timing's pretty good if you're thinking of maybe treating yourself for Christmas. So what can people expect from the Retro Hour book if they haven't got one already, Joe?
I think, you know, when I say like, not that I talk about it often, I walk around going, I've made a book at work.
On the bus.
But whenever it comes, on the bus, just waving them around. Whenever it comes up, or even with like family, you know, that we did a book as part of the podcast. I think people will expect like just a little, you know, just a little book kind of thing, but it's a nice big 400-page coffee table book, you know, hardback. You know, you can drop it on the table, it'll make the room shake kind of thing. Basically, it's 10 of our favorite interviews that we did from the first kind of 250 episodes, which is maybe 300 episodes when the book came out 3 years ago. You know, you got Nolan Bushnell in there. You've got Wild Bill Steely in there. Some really, really fantastic guests. As well as that, 4 exclusive interviews in there.
5.
Five. It was 5 in the end. We did keep saying it was 4, but it was 5 in the end, wasn't it? 5 exclusive interviews in there as well, which were never on the show. You know, they were ones we did specially for the book. So exclusive interviews in there as well as articles in there that we all wrote kind of about ourselves as well. And it isn't just the interviews. There's lots of interesting facts in there, lots of jargon busting and stuff like that. And it was a real community thing, you know, because we used all like local photographers and videographers for like the advertising campaign and everything like that. And Simon, who helped us produce the book, you know, absolutely fantastic. And he's got a history of, you know, producing books as well as his career. So I'm really, really happy with the finished product. But yeah, it was funny when we got that email a couple of months ago to say, you know, those 1,000 books you had printed and sold. And we're like, yeah. So yeah, I actually have like another couple of boxes that got printed. Yep. So yeah.
Warehouse, yeah.
I've got like them on my shelves at home.
Yeah, Ravi has them.
Yeah. As they're selling, I'm starting to see them disappear off the shelves as well, which is really good. So get them whilst you can, you know.
Yeah, but that's up on our website at the moment. We really, really need to post it on our socials. We're terrible. Yeah, we talk about it on the show.
We'll put that out this week, yeah.
We will put that out this week. We'll need to put some links out on our social media as well. But yeah, get them while they're there because of I don't think we'll ever be printing it again or anything like that. So yeah, if you're interested and you're a big fan of the podcast and you've never read it or heard of it, go check it out.
Yeah, I did get a load of people after we finished the Kickstarter going, I missed out anyway and get hold of a copy. Yeah. So this is your chance. Last chance, actually. So when they're gone. So head to theretrohour.com. You can get the hardback book. We do a PDF of it as well if you just want the that version for your iPad. So all the details on our website, theretrohour.com. Click on the store button. Right then, you know the way the show works. First bit of the podcast is when we have a bit of a chat about what's been happening in retro from over the last week. Now, we're starting with some very sad news this week that we have lost a And the word legend does get bandied around a bit too much, I think, in retro gaming circles. But Rebecca Heineman definitely does fit that description. We lost Burger Becky this week, which is very sad news.
Yeah, it's really sad news. It hit me quite hard actually because when we first started the podcast, Rebecca came on like episode 26, which is really in the early days, and she's someone I've always wanted on the podcast. Just really fantastic. I remember we did the interview, and I think it was an hour or half an hour afterwards, and we were still chatting.
Yeah,
and there was a lot that went on off mic as well, and then we had Janelle Jacquez as well, her wife, on later, and talked about some of the great development that they both were involved with. Rebecca, the Bard's Tale 3 as well, of course, co-founding Interplay, which is huge. Baldur's Gate as well, a Battle Chess as well, which is one which I absolutely loved. 3DO and Fallout, but she's really just a genuine nice person. She was a great advocate of trans rights and inclusion as well, and just a great person to have in the industry. I remember we covered stories recently where she was talking about how she'd archived everything and she'd copied everything, and she had original copies of a lot of the stuff that went on at Interplay. All the different versions. She was really fantastic at wanting to preserve these titles and preserve video game history as well.
Yeah, I've seen so many tributes coming in from like industry icons as well, like Trip Hawkins. So he did a great tribute on his social yesterday. And I actually saw Rebecca last time at VCF East when I went out there in April this year.
Which wasn't long ago, yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, she's up on stage and an amazing, really interesting chat about mod music, which I think you can watch on YouTube if you did miss out on that panel. It was such an interesting talk. And like you said, Ravi, just even though I hadn't met her in person before, I went over and introduced myself. She was like, oh, yeah, of course you remember. Always took time to talk to everyone. Such a warm, welcoming person. So, yeah, I think this week I might dig out a bit of Battle Chess in honor of Rebecca. So, yeah, R.I.P. Burger Becky. And if you do want to check out, a few people asked us on a Discord for a link to the interview that we did with her way back in 2015, 2016, I think it was. Episode 26 of the podcast. So I put that on our Discord if you want to have a listen back to that. So, definitely check that out. So other things that have been landing on our timelines this week. Now, I did say at the start of the podcast, it looks like Christmas might be coming early for Dreamcast fans because that DreamDisc 25 is just around the corner. It's always around this time of year, Christmas time, when the Dreamcast Game Jam kicks off.
Yeah, so this is Game Jam, which, fantastic things. A kind of I don't know if it's a modern phenomenon or not, because you used to have like demo parties and stuff, and people always creating great things around those. But these game jams seem great because they pump out a lot of titles.
Explain what they are for people that might not be familiar. What is a game jam?
A game jam is a lot of people getting together to create a game, but they're not doing it on the spot. Some are like 24-hour game jams. What can we produce in that time period? But something like this would be a time period that's been defined, and people will work together, release a title, release a game. There's usually limitations and restrictions of what you can use. That's to work on the original hardware, stuff like that. But this one, they actually produce a disc. Yeah. So they call it the DreamDisc 25. The previous Jam event, 24, they had one. And just looking at this disc, it reminds me of like when you used to get a demo disc for the PlayStation, or you get like Net Heroes disc and you'd have all these amazing titles, or even PD games or a PD list of titles. But, I find Game Jam games are much higher quality than the PD titles back in the days. I think maybe it's because everyone's just aiming for the one thing and they're trying to outdo each other. Yeah, in it.
That competition element, because that they do with a lot of them, including this one as well. The entries are scored by a panel of judges from the community as well. So you're right, everyone's trying to do the best entry.
Yeah, and it's like the languages you've got there as well, like STL as well, and Lua and stuff. There's a lot more development that's come out, as well as these great things like Callistos, the operating system behind it, and that you can make Dreamcast games. You know, we've seen a lot of them come out recently due to all of these great tools. But also, you can enter lots of different stuff. They're going to have like VMU games. There's going to be like, you know, lots of different categories and areas. So I can't wait to see what comes out of this, because hopefully, you know, some of these, if people are blown away, that they'll become full releases and people will end up finishing the project. It's a good place to, you know, experiment ideas and kind of get them off the ground and see if they work. And I guess there's a lot of innovation and in concepts and stuff from game jams. I remember seeing a Nokia phone game jam.
Nice.
Where people were making Nokia games, and I thought that's cool. And suddenly there were like 20 or 30 new Nokia games coming out.
Well, that's a good point. 'Cause, I mean, it is a great way to get new games. I mean, the one they released last year, like you said, the DreamDisc 24, load of games on that, including everything from 3D space shooters, there was 2D platforms, racing games, the VMU mini games you mentioned. Someone even did like a custom implementation of Java for it as well. So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, like you said, a great way for people to experiment. So if you want to get involved in this, organised by Orc Face Games in collaboration with PsyOp Games, starts on December the 1st. And I'll link up the website in the show notes as well, running through to the end of February. And then there's going to be a panel of judges that will score the games. And then the top 3 are actually going to receive a cash sum. And then the top 10 are going to have a place on the physical DreamDisc 25 CD-ROM that's going to be launched next year. And they'll put those out for the cost of shipping as well. So, yeah, I think it's really... I love game jams. I mean, you're right. I'm trying to think when they kicked off. I mean, I imagine with this being 25, I imagine this is 25 years.
It seems like something, I could be completely wrong here, but it seems like something that when the indie game scene kind of started to gain momentum, games jams came in. But it could, you know, I could be wrong. It could be going back to the 70s.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I remember stuff like in Amiga Format magazine. Do you remember they'd have in the back, they had the Reader's Games section?
Yeah.
And they put those on the CD-ROM, which is the same kind of thing, I suppose.
And Cami does a Christmas one as well.
The Amiga, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, each community has a little one of these game jams, and it just brings more attention to it. I think they had one for the Amstrad as well, which was, you know, we're seeing a lot of cool results coming out of that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just for those of us that can't code, great just to get a CD-ROM of 10 amazing homebrew Dreamcast games that are coming out next year. So if you want to get more details on the DreamDisc 25 and the game jam that's going on right now, I'll put that in this week's show notes. Now, this was a very interesting revelation that came out this week from an interesting panel that the Video Game History Foundation, Frank Cifaldi and the team there, who, of course, we've had a lot of contact with Frank over the years, great guy. They did a 2-hour-long panel that is absolutely worth a watch. That's on YouTube right now if you want to check it out, with Gail Tilden, Lance Barr, and Bruce Lowry talking about the NES American launch, because it was 40 years ago this year. So they did a big panel to celebrate that. And some really interesting things came out of it. The one that's been making the headlines in a lot of the retro gaming blogs is this revelation that apparently Nintendo were almost going to be designing the NES to go head-to-head with the Atari 2600.
Yeah, so obviously the Famicom came out in, I want to say, 83 in Japan. When bringing the NES to America, to North America, obviously, because of the video game crash that, you know, ironically Atari caused, they wanted to make sure that the NES would basically not look like a toy, you know, but it would look like a product. It would look futuristic, which is why we got the grey kind of like not top loading, but the grey kind of like VHS player kind of front loading one. So it looked more like a, you know, like a system, like a, you know, like a hi-fi system or a video player that you would have as part of your kind of TV setup in your living room, rather than a games console or a toy that, you know, would be in your children's bedroom. And basically, when they first started designing it to come out in America, I believe it was Lance Barr who had a hand in the design of it, basically. And he mentions that Nintendo of Japan were kind of looking at, like, should we make it look like the Atari 2600 with that classic wood paneling? and have it as a top-loading console with the switches on it, like an Atari 2600, which for me, I think would have dated it massively because of
it's very 70s, isn't it?
Look is very 70s, yeah, because it went with like these TVs of the 70s, especially in North America, that had like the wood paneling around the TV, or the TV would look like a cupboard a wooden cupboard that you would open up and the TV would be built into it.
Yeah, it went for the more kind of VHS front-loading style, didn't it?
Yeah, so basically, in the end, obviously, we got the futuristic look, which I think suited the look of like computers of the 80s as well. You know, there's kind of like those white, big, square, you know, the future, you know, very kind of like, I don't want to say Star Wars, but very kind of like Space Odyssey kind of look to them. But it's just funny to think in like an alternative reality somewhere that we got a wood panel NES where the cartridge stuck into the top with flick switches on it. And that obviously Nintendo still saw Atari as kind of like, okay, this is what they did. Like, we need to copy them, even though they ruined it, if that makes sense. Like,
I think it's a good point you make about the video games crash, because, you know, the NES kind of rose out of that and was an independent thing and proved that you could still sell, you know, video game consoles. And that definition, you know, it made it look new worldy. It didn't look of the kind of wooden. I remember, what is it? The car, the Morris Traveller, where you had the wooden panels on the back. People were obsessed with, you know, that wood look. Yeah, and I think maybe it might not have done as well if it.
I don't think it would have done as well. I don't think it would have done as well. I think, you know, there's an alternative reality out there where we got a wood panel NES. And we're still all playing Sega.
Although LGR would have been happy with the wood grain NES.
He would have been. But it's interesting to see, you know, and, you know, kind of cement that Nintendo made all the right decisions, I guess.
Yeah, and it's good to see Nintendo of America employees talking publicly as well about this stuff.
Yeah.
And new info, because we have Sega of America come out quite a lot, but hardly ever hear anything. And, you know, I've been trying to ask Gail, Bruce and Lance as well on the podcast. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have them on, because, you know, Nintendo of America have a lot of stories to offer, I can imagine.
Yeah, whenever we reach out to Nintendo people, it's always the same thing. Like, oh, I can't really talk about it. I get the impression a lot of them is like sign non-disclosure agreements for life. So they're very secretive compared to Sega. But yeah, I think, that they did completely make the right decision. I mean, I think because... obviously we're not American. We didn't experience the video game crash. We're all, you know, too young, or you weren't born in that case, Joe. But it was, I think, I often hear that the NES was basically the rebirth of the industry. So it made sense that it didn't look like what came before. And I always like the look of the American NES compared to the Famicom. I think the Famicom looks, a little bit kind of flimsy compared to
It's weird. In America, you know, they said, you know, we like computer games in England, and I've heard the phrase, you know, I'm going to go and play Atari, and then later on it was, I'm going to go and play Nintendo. With us, I'm going to go on the computer. It's very kind of different.
I don't ever remember calling them video games until, like, you know, maybe the 2000s. It was all computer games.
It was always computer games, or it was like, my mum would always say, we're going to go play some Sega. Or my dad would go, we're going to go play some Sega.
Your parents were cool, Joe.
Although I do say that I did like the look of the NES. Kind of ironically, when the Super Nintendo came out in America, I hated the way that looked compared to the European
the
and Japanese
square
one.
with the purple. Yeah, I always thought that was an odd look.
Which I suppose, I mean, that it does look like a descendant of the NES, I suppose, in the kind of boxy, kind of grey look when you think about it. So I can kind of see where they were going with that. But
I'm with you there, Dan. I don't like the American Super Nintendo. I much prefer the Japanese and UK one.
Yeah, with the Palmer Violet controller buttons.
Yeah.
So, really interesting panel, though. Yeah, it weighs into 2 hours long. So if you want some history of the NES and its American launch, it's definitely worthwhile watch. I'll link that in this week's show notes as well. Now, I've got a feeling this is going to take up a lot of my time over the Christmas break that is not far away now. Our friends at yokefolk.com, now you might know them, fantastic Dizzy community. And a few years ago, they made a bunch of, I think it was actually all of them, wasn't it, of the Oliver Twins Dizzy games playable on the Oliver Twins official website. So you can play them all in browser. Well, actually now, they've taken that to a whole new level with the Codemasters Archive. Now, they're calling it the Complete Codemasters Legacy, from 8-bit heroes to 16-bit legends, 179 games, of which when you click into them, there are way more versions of them as well that you can now play directly in your web browser. No hassle. Play them at work, on your lunch break. What do you guys think of these?
I think this is really cool. I just saw that, not a game I'm into, but it was a game my brother had, Colin McRae Rally. And I just clicked on that, and it's like, do you want to play the PlayStation version or do you want to play the Game Boy Advance version? You know, you click on Cannon Fodder, and it's like, do you want to play the Game Boy Color version or the Super Nintendo version? You know, Micro Machines, it's like, do you want to play the Game Gear, Game Boy, Super Nintendo, or Mega Drive version? You know, there isn't every single version of these games, you know, like, but it's very, very cool, and it's very, very well presented. I haven't tried to play any yet out of fear of blowing my computer up while I'm on here with you guys recording. But the library is massive, like
179 titles in there. Yeah. I think you're right. There's so many classics. I just think it's bonkers that we're in a world that you could run a PlayStation in a browser. And, you know, I have that really accurate as well. It's just like when I was loading those Java applets back in the days, you know, trying to play a game or Flash games. It's a different world, isn't it? Like Pete Sampras Tennis, that actually excites me more than a lot of the other titles. Microsoft, Micro Machines as well, V3, which was the PlayStation version. Later was quite good. But
wasn't that the game that kind of got you into the PlayStation, wasn't it?
I think it was my first PlayStation game, that was, before I got it chipped and it broke. But yeah, Pete Sampras Tennis, that's the bad boy. You know, you can go through all of those. I'll play that at work and just annoy everyone.
There's some great stuff on here as well that I didn't realize had an affiliation with Codemasters. Like you said, Cannon Fodder. Obviously, I played that on the Amiga back in the day. Never played the Game Boy Color version of it, or the SNES version, actually. I mean, it was one of those games that was ported to pretty much everything that was out there at the time, wasn't it? Even got it on like the Atari Jaguar, and I imagine obviously Codemasters did these two versions. So Super Skid Marks as well. That again played the Amiga version, Acid Software back in the day. Codemasters Mega Drive version of it that you can play on here as well.
I think
the cows.
The most interesting thing for me is Music 2000. Yeah, which is, you know, the music production piece of software for the PlayStation, and like, you know, with grime and stuff like. I don't think it was Dizzy Rascal, but there's a few others that were making early grime on the PlayStation, like before Fruity Loops. And Music 2000, you can load that up and make some tracks on there and kind of get that sound. Really cool piece of software, and I think that's the most creative one out of this. It's kind of a non-game title, but pretty cool to see that there as well.
Yeah, a load of 8-bit stuff in here as well. Terra Cognita. I remember my brother having that on the 64 back in the day.
Wasn't that a Net Heroes game, Terra? No, that was
we had that in the
one.
64, yeah. I mean, it came out in a bunch of different 8-bits. I'm not sure whether there was ever a 16 or 32-bit version of it, but yeah, it's like just looking through the list on here as well. Rockstar Ate My Hamster, you can play that, 18 plus, I say that game is. And it's interesting, they do a little list of kind of the latest games people have been playing on here as well, which now is all us guys because we've been clicking around. But also the stuff like Treasure Island Dizzy, shows you what's trending now, Fantasy World Dizzy. There's even the top 5 most played on here as well. So you want to dive straight in. A lot of Dizzy games making the list, as you can imagine. But yeah, I think like you said, Ravi, I think the fact that you can now just basically play PlayStation games smoothly in your web browser on your PC at work.
Or even like, you know, just on a tablet or like an underpowered system. Just load up a browser and play it. It's mental.
Yeah, so plenty of those available now. As we said, 179. Codemasters Classics, many different versions of them as well. Haven't seen any Amiga ones on here, sadly. But, I mean, stuff like Micro Machines, the Mega Drive version was virtually...
Well, I was wondering about that. I was thinking maybe, I don't know if the games, like, it lines up, maybe the Evercade, you know, the fact that a lot of them are commercially available on the Evercade might be a reason that they're not on there. Like, deals have been struck somewhere else, you know.
Well, I mean, you do make a good point there. We should point out this is unofficial. They do say it was created under license from Electronic Arts, though. So it looks like they do have permission. Yeah, shouldn't feel guilty by playing these games in your browser. So if you want to check that out, codemastersarchive.co.uk, I will link that in this week's show notes as well. Now we're going to talk about something very exciting that's come into the Game Boy Advance, particularly for me, probably my all-time favourite racer. Someone's got it running on the GBA, and some very cool news if your Xbox 360 controllers are wearing out. Now, before we do that, let's take a second to give a massive thank you to our longest-running sponsor. I think it's 8 years they've been with us now, Sam and the amazing team at Bitmap Books. Now, have you guys seen their latest book? I should just got my copy in the post today. So for people watching on YouTube, I'll do a bit of a flick through. It's called Trigger Happy, a visual celebration of video game controllers. Now, this is a really cool idea. It's by Christian Wenk. It's co-authored by legendary games journalist Steve Jarrett, who we've had on the podcast before, who did some amazing magazines back in the day, and definitely worth checking out that interview we did with him. And it kind of goes into the history, more than 390 pages, and goes through some of the most iconic, for good and bad reasons, game controllers of all time. I thought it might be interesting, actually. I think we did an entire After Hours episode about game controllers at one point, but I mean, instantly, like, what comes to mind? What would you say is your all-time favourite, Ravi? We're talking maybe retro stuff.
Oh, Zipstick, but...
you nicked mine.
Yeah. I think, games controllers, it's a really underexplored area as well. Some of the hardest quiz questions are always about the number of buttons on game controllers that we have at Christmas. So, I need to get this one and start looking them up, and also some of the weirder ones and some of the accessories that you had as well.
Yeah, I mean, looking through the list of things they cover on here, obviously they've got the legendary ones, the Atari CX40, the Competition Pros are in there as well. Then it goes into kind of modern reimaginings of some controllers, and there's some misfits as well. There's the Seaman joypad, the Dragon's Quest slime controller, even the Resident Evil chainsaw. You ever play with that,
the Nights into Dreams one, and I always thought that was really beautiful as well.
The Amiga CD32 ones in here as well. Some of the very random cheetah ones as well. I did see Kari, who we had on the podcast a few months ago. She got hold of the Alien 3 cheetah joystick. She showed that off on X the other day.
Most uncomfortable one in history.
It looks so cool. I remember eyeing up the Bart Simpson one in my local computer shop when I was a kid, thinking, I really want that. But yeah, obviously hideous to play games with. But yeah, I mean, it's something we often don't think about, but obviously they are our connection to the game, aren't they? So video game controller is so important. So this offers an amazing visual guide to it as well, presented through more than 560 stunning photos. So you can get your copy right now in time for Christmas. Trigger Happy, a visual celebration of video game controllers. Order your copy at bitmapbooks.com. Now, I did mention one of my all-time favourite titles, landing on a platform that didn't previously have this game on there. And I must be honest, I didn't think it would be up to running it, but someone's actually managed it. This is the legendary Ridge Racer. Now, I always talk about my memories of Ridge Racer, and I remember playing it in my local bowling alley on the sit-down cabinet in that gorgeous red car. Got a feeling it was like maybe £2 to play that in my local arcade back in like 94, 95. Remember to really tap my dad up to have a go on that
Dad,
game. I'm
driving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's going to be an education for me. And then when the PlayStation came out, one of the games we got with it, loved playing it at home. Still love the original Ridge Racer. Played it through the Xbox 360 and PS3 as well, and even got it on the 3DS. Franchise that I really miss. Really fun, kind of white knuckle racing game. I mean, were you guys fans of Ridge Racer?
I've never been a racing guy. I remember it, and I remember it being a big deal when it came out on the PlayStation. And I remember my brother playing them in the arcade. But it's not one that I'm a silly. If it comes to racing games, I like kart racers. Silly racing games. But I know, obviously, your love for Ridge Racer. Ever since I've known you, this last 15 years, you've always regarded Ridge Racer as one of your favorite games of all time.
I remember it in the arcade, that Ridge Racer that you'd hear blasting out every 5 minutes. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of like, I love games like, Lotus on the Amiga. But then I remember, like, obviously virtual racing and stuff came along, but to me, like, Ridge Racer was kind of the first proper 3D arcade racing game that I played. So for me, it's always kind of stuck in my memory.
It felt more immersive to me with the sound, especially when you're going through the tunnels and and you get the echo and stuff like that. And yeah, you felt really connected to the kind of car and ground, but also they were chunky, weren't they? They were chunky cars in Ridge Racer. Yeah, I liked stuff a bit later on, but also when it came out, I was like, whoa, this is amazing.
Well, we did mention that this has now been ported to the GBA, the Game Boy Advance, by, this is Valenti, I believe you pronounce his name, the RR project. Now, this is an unofficial attempt to recreate Namco's iconic racer on the Game Boy Advance. Now, I don't know if you guys have watched the video to this. What do you think? What do you think of this?
I've got like two things to say. I've got, I guess, a negative and then a positive. So the negative, which is obviously gonna have to happen, is the graphics have been dialed back substantially. I've had to go back and look at the graphics of the original arcade, because in my mind's eye, I'm looking at the PlayStation one. So I was like, I gotta look at what the arcade one looked like. It doesn't look as good as I remember it looking, but they've definitely dialed back the graphics on this. It reminds me of Hard Driving for the Mega Drive. Graphically. However, that game ran at about 2 frames per second. This game is stunning. The frame rate is solid, like fixed 30 frames per second. It runs fantastically. Now, obviously, the game hasn't been sent out for demo / emulation yet. At the moment, it's all videos. But the sound on it sounds fantastic as well. Like, the voices and stuff like that and the music sounds absolutely great. So if this truly is running on GBA hardware, then it is actually a mind-blowing feat. Like, it looks fantastic. And when I was a big GBA kid, I was massive into GBA, and when you would see like games that were like PlayStation or N64 games, like, oh my god, Spyro the Dragon's coming out on the Game Boy Advance, they weren't that 3D from behind. They were like the kind of like silicon graphics, like kind of isometrical view of the game. And it was like that with like the Tony Hawk's game. It was kind of like a top-down view and like Crazy Taxi and stuff like that. They were never like an actual kind of first-person racing game. They were always like Rock and Roll Racer, from the top kind of thing, or a little bit like Micro Machines. But to see this as an actual, first-person racing game with polygons, in 3D, although dialed back, I think it is fantastic. So I'm looking forward to see when this actually gets, released for the people to actually have emulate on their Game Boy Advances and see how it runs then. But there's no reason for me to not believe that it'll run, because what's the point in lying, basically?
I don't think they're trying to deceive you, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's got a bit of a kind of graphically, it reminds me of some Atari Jaguar kind of games, maybe.
Okay.
Kind of boxy kind of look, but it's, I think, because obviously, I was looking a bit more into the hardware of the Game Boy Advance, because I've got one in my cupboard, and on the box, it does say it's a 32-bit console.
It does,
but then, but I think stuff like, from memory, I think the CPU might be 32-bit, but the rest of the system, like the GPU and the VRAM, that kind of 16. Yeah, so I mean, that's why the games on the Game Boy Advance always look like 16-bit games, don't they? So I think having this running on what is essentially, as you said before, they kind of remind you of Super Nintendo games generally. So seeing this running on that kind of level of hardware, I think, is really impressive. If this had come out like on the Super Nintendo looking like this back in 94, 95, I think this would have been a massive seller back then. So
I think the look of it, you just mentioned Super Nintendo there. It made me think, Star Fox and Virtual Racing for the Mega Drive. Like, they look like that, but this runs better than them. It's running faster than them. The draw distance on it, what's going on the screen, etc. There seems to be more about it, if that makes sense.
And even though it's very scaled back, it's still notably Ridge Racer. You can start looking at the track design and everything and the layout. It's like, it does look and feel like a Ridge Racer game. So
I love that next to your timer at the top, as there is an FPS like timer thing as well, like 30.
Look, it is running fast, no drops.
Yeah.
Nice for bragging rights, but yeah, this looks awesome. And I was looking into it. I mentioned that last Ridge Racer game I played was the one on the 3DS. And looking at this article here on Time Extension, Ridge Racer Unbounded was the last one that they did back in 2012. There was some mobile games I never checked out, but it does feel like the franchise was so big back in the day, and the fact that Bandai Namco have just done nothing with it now for over a decade, bit tragic really. So for Ridge Racer fans, something new to play hopefully coming soon. So if you want to check that out, I'll link the video and that article in this week's show notes. Now something else from back in the day that's getting a nice upgrade: a Duke Nukem 3D.
Yeah, so Duke Nukem 3D is going voxel. So
what does that mean?
If you don't know about voxel, have you played Minecraft, Dan?
Yeah, I've played Minecraft.
Yeah, everything's made up of like little blocks. That's essentially what it is. So voxel models are really good. Instead of the flat kind of 2D that you used to have, where the enemies looked a bit cardboardy. You'd move
that 2.5D kind of.
Yeah, 2.5. This is a full made up of grids of tiny, tiny blocks to create the characters, which means, you've got a lot more depth within them as well. Whereas if you did like a remaster or a remake, a lot of people would just redo the graphics. They would, but this retains the original graphics, but has that kind of voxel engine. So
it fleshes them out almost, then brings them into 3D.
Yeah. So you've been looking at recent boomer shooters. I hate that term, but we've seen some voxel ones come out of people who've made those 90s style ones. So revisiting this kind of voxel style is really cool, and it's not polygonal, which was like when you had Quake, with the kind of blocky ones. It's just thousands of little blocks, and it's really interesting. He's done voxel Doom previously as well, which went down really well.
This is Chilo. Chilo's his name, Dan Peterson.
Yes. Yeah, and it means distances and like silhouettes and shadows and stuff, and it just looks all a lot nicer. And then of course you can have it in the higher resolution and stuff, and you can use the power of your modern graphics card and really go for it with Duke Nukem.
I think that's very cool because I do remember playing some early FPS games, and it did always kind of ruin the illusion a little bit when you kind of saw characters kind of side on. I remember with Wolfenstein and Doom, and they look flat, didn't they? So I think it's kind of fleshing those out and bring them into proper 3D. Which obviously is a limitation of hardware at the time, but obviously with what we have now, it is possible. So if you want to get hold of this, actually it should be out the day the podcast lands. So coming out on a Friday, November 21st. You do need the original game, and it's got a compatible port and model loader as well, a thing called eDuke 32 that you need to basically to play this. But I'll link up his Twitter profile if you want to get more information. So it'll be something good for Duke Nukem fans to play this weekend. Now, just one final story for everyone else. Patrons get a few extra ones as well. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But this one looks really cool. Now, we're talking about game controllers a few minutes ago. The Xbox 360, which many people regard as one of the best game controllers of all time. And, that system is knocking on 20 years old now. What about you guys? We've got a few 360 controllers. Some of them are kind of wearing away a bit at the back. Some of the grips are not quite what they were.
They're full of grime that you have to pull out with a little pin.
The rubber on the joypads can kind of get a bit sticky after all this time.
Honestly, I've been playing a lot of 360 games. This is kind of what I really play at the moment. I've been looking at the old library. I've got it all modded and everything on there. And I've got one controller and the shoulder buttons squeak. So literally when you do so, it's like that, and it's really bad.
Well, it might be time for an upgrade, Ravi.
Yeah, I do think I need an upgrade. And I was thinking, do I really? I could just clean it up a bit and use it. But this sounds amazing, what's coming out, this new controller from Retro Fighters. Interestingly, it's compatible with 2.4 gigahertz wireless. So you can use it on your modern systems as well as on the 360. And I was kind of like stupidly wondering, why does my Xbox One pad not work with my 360? Why can't I pair them up, you know? And obviously we've moved on a lot from Bluetooth, you know, and how it was. So you get a little dongle that you put into the 360 in the USB and then connect to this new controller. But then that also means you can use it on PCs or Macs or whatever.
Well, this is the Retro Fighters Hunter 360. Which is $59.99. And what do you think of this, Joe? Because I'm looking at it, and to me, it looks a bit like, I'm getting kind of like Mad Catz kind of vibes off it, maybe. But obviously, I mean, you've got to hold controllers to kind of get a feel of how good they are.
I think you know what? It's a weird one because it's like, one, it's like, okay, we're seeing the Xbox 360 as a retro game controller being released. Like, that makes me feel so old. It doesn't give it's the form factor of it. Like, it looks like the wired controllers to me. The wired ones weren't as like heavy or as thick, you know, even the official ones as the wireless ones. So like in terms of form factor, it reminds me more of one of the wireless ones. I think there's definitely a market for it because of when I do the games markets with my mate Jason, his stand always gets raided for Xbox 360 controllers because he tends to sell them quite cheap, usually for like £5 or £10 if they're in good condition. And they're generally about £20-25 on like Kex or eBay when they're in nice condition. And as you pointed out at the start of this story, the thumbsticks are always damaged on them as well. Like, you know, the rubbers all come off and stuff. So I think there's definitely a need for it. I just think for this, I'd have to hold it in my hands before I bought it to see how it feels. But the shape of it and everything is spot on, you know, to an Xbox 360 controller. And obviously the button layout and everything. Interesting design choice is the D-pad isn't like I forget the official name of it, but the D-pad on the Xbox 360 was that disc one.
Yeah, a bit like a rocket kind of thing, wasn't it? Yeah,
which was like the Sega Mega Drive one. Whereas this is a more traditional D-pad. So that would be
the Xbox One, really, isn't it? It looks similar to the Xbox One controller.
And some people argue that the Xbox 360 or the Xbox One controller, I often see it regarded as one of the best controllers of all time. Interestingly, after the original Xbox, people didn't really like it. So maybe that's why they've done that and changed it to the D-pad similar to the Xbox One version, because people might have preferred that one. I think it's a cool controller. Like I say, I think $60, like, all right, if it only worked on Xbox 360, I think that'd be steep.
It's the price of two 360s though, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, yeah. But I think because of it works on, you know, modern PC and Mac and stuff like that, that's a good selling point. But like I say, I would like to have a feel of this in a shop or at a convention before I commit to buy to it, because I wouldn't want that Mad Catz feel to it.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that wouldn't be the case. The look of it looks very good.
I imagine it'll probably feel lighter than I'm used to, because I always had the wireless controllers with the battery pack on the bottom, which obviously added a bit of weight.
That's basically, I didn't mention the weight of it, but yeah, because it looks like it's the same size as the wireless one. It's not got that heavy battery pack on it. And I do like my controllers to have weight to them.
Yeah.
I never liked the PS3 controller, because the PS3 controller didn't weigh anything.
Same. We like a bit of chunk in our hands, don't we, Joe?
Yeah.
I even like the Duke, you know, which I know I'm probably alone there. But I was like, in the Dreamcast controller, I was quite like that as well. I was like big controllers. One thing people have pointed out, which might be a bit of a negative for some 360 gamers, is the lack of the little connection at the bottom for the headset and the microphone.
No one's going to use that.
I mean, that's the complaint I've seen.
Scream at people and call it jury.
Can't remember the last time I ever did voice chat on any platform, never mind the 360. I remember it was a thing when COD 4 came out and Halo 3, everyone, normally like 12-year-old kids, screaming obscenities at you.
Yeah,
so
screamers,
muted, but I think, it's definitely, like we said, as these consoles do get older now and the original controllers kind of give up the ghost, it is nice to have brand new replacements available. So the price, I think, is reasonable. So yeah, for $60, if you want to get hold of that, the Retro Fighters Hunter 360 is available now. Now, I did mention that patrons get a few extra news stories, and we do those every week, actually, just for our wonderful patrons. Also, we chop all the adverts out of the podcast. They get a few extra ones. Next weekend, November 30th, is going to be our monthly Patrons Hangout as well. Hangouts are always a giggle, aren't they, Ravi?
Oh, yeah, absolutely love them. We also have the Mega Cut, which is a really interesting
Super Cut, Ravi,
thing.
get it right, Super Cut.
Super Cut. I like Mega.
I might rename it now, actually. Yeah, that does sound better.
Cyber Razor Cut, you could call it. I think it's really cool. It's like the whole episode on video with the extra patron news all in one. Huge.
And the interview, yeah.
Yeah, and the interview all stuck together. So that's really good, and patrons have been absolutely loving that. We've also got the After Hours podcast, which we're going to be recording as well. That's going to be coming out. Oh God, I think next week, hopefully.
Episode 50, that will be.
50, my God, 50, yeah. So it's really, really good. Like, lovely patron community. They all get involved with the show, and we get a lot of info from them as well. If you join, you can join an exclusive Discord area as well. There's chatter on there. It just really helps the show keep going. We've been going for 10 years now, and it's just fantastic to have this community around it.
Yeah, we'd love you to join as well. We're always welcoming of new patrons. So if you want to help us with our little cause, keep the lights on into 2026, all the details to join our wonderful patrons community are on the website, theretrohour.com. All right, well, thank you so much for checking out the news this week. We'll, of course, have more for you on the podcast next Friday.